So, tonight we're going to talk about three foods that can be making your PCOS symptoms worse, why, and then maybe some better options. So, a lot of times when we're looking at chronic conditions or syndromes, we think we have to change everything right away. And that doesn't necessarily need to be the case all the time. And changing too much too fast can be a stressor on your body, and it can cause, again, more issues than we're looking for. And most people don't stick with really aggressive changes right away. So we want to start small. So let's start with looking at foods that aren't helpful, that could be making that situation worse. And let's talk about ways to support that. So when we're looking at three foods, and we can just do broad categories of foods that could be making your symptoms worse: refined carbohydrates like white breads, pastries, sugary cereals. And the reason that these are problematic is because they're high sugar content. There's not a lot of fats and protein to help slow, and fiber to slow down your digestion. And that subsequently increases your insulin, blood sugar. Your body's wreaked havoc through that process. And so when looking at having a sugary cereal, having just that without fat and protein will cause your insulin and blood sugar to just go haywire. So that's not helping your PCOS situation. Sugary beverages like sodas, sweetened coffee drinks, and energy drinks. Again, this is just pure sugar, and it's not helping your body. So I like to be a little bit more careful with the wording that I use when working with clients, because I don't want to say that things are good and bad. It puts morality on something that doesn't have morality in it. And it also perpetuates the problem of like binge restrict patterns and some unhealthy behavior patterns that people have associated with food. So when we're talking about like things that can make your PCOS symptoms worse, we're talking about things that are unhelpful to your blood sugar regulation. And when we want to help PCOS and we want to help your body perform better and to manage its symptoms and to manage how you're feeling, um, having those highs and lows in your blood sugar isn't helpful. So the processed carbohydrates, sugary beverages, and then, believe it or not, processed meats like deli meats, sometimes bacon, sausages. And it's just like the high fat with the higher saturated fats, because fat doesn't necessarily need to be bad. And it can trigger inflammation. So, with everything on the internet, um, not every bit of information will apply to you. And learning what works for you and what applies to you is a really important process. Whether you have a coach or a healthcare provider that's helping you work through these, navigate these issues, it's just important to remember that not everything is for everybody. And sometimes higher fat diets are really good for people, sometimes it's not helpful. But always extremely high sugary drinks, ultra processed carbohydrates, and the refined, simple carbohydrates, those are going to be problematic. And they are problematic because they have that highs and low. They cause the highs and lows in your blood sugar. And your blood sugar regulation impacts every aspect of your body. It's not just your ovaries, it's every single part of your body. And so it's really important to remember that when we're looking to address our PCOS symptoms and start feeling better, we can start with small changes, and then choose foods that are helpful and not necessarily demonize foods that aren't helpful, but we can avoid them. So, an idea to swap out. So, we're talking about things that aren't helpful. Okay, great. What's the solution? Because too often we go on, um, all these things are bad. This is a problem, the end. And there's no solution. And that's not helpful to you. So, when we're talking about refined carbs, we can move to more of like whole grains, lower glycemic carbs. So, stuff like sprouted grain bread, steel cut oats, or chia pudding. Sometimes chia pudding can cause bloating for people, just depends. Again, that's a bio individual thing. Quinoa, lentils, sweet potatoes, almond or coconut baked flour goods. Sometimes those will be helpful. It just depends. Another example is sourdough bread. I know everybody loves their sourdough bread. I do too. And it's another way where you can have carbs, but it's a more complicated, complex process. And so your body has to work harder to process that. And that's a good thing because that keeps your body from having those highs and lows. And then another way that you can do it is you can, like if you're having whole grain pasta or you're having pastas or rice, you can cool them. So cook them the day before, put them in the fridge or freezer, whatever you decide, cool them, and then reheat. And that changes the structure of the carb and it turns it into a prebiotic. So you have the gut healing components of feeding the gut bacteria that needs to be fed. And then you have a complex carb and it's helping your whole body systems. And then sugary beverages, swapping sodas. Sodas aren't necessarily the best option for you. Having them once in a while is not a big deal. Having them all the time could be problematic. And then sweetened lattes, you could do the unsweet version. Could do sparkling waters. You could do half sweet if you want to have half sweet for lattes. It doesn't have to be crazy amounts of sugar. You can cut that down, pair it with a protein and fat, and you have a very helpful meal. Um, and then stuff like coffee, plain coffee, matcha lattes, electrolyte drinks with no sugar added. I like element tea. Some people will talk about the element tea powder, how it's not the best option for you, but I have found the element tea, and I'm not getting paid for this. This is not an ad. I'm just love it. The element tea carbonated waters, and they are so good. They are so good. And then swapping some of those meats out where we're looking for fats that have omega-3s, and those are more helpful. So the wild caught salmon or sardines, pasture raised turkey or chicken, organic eggs. And then if you are a person who meat isn't preferable for you, there's tempeh or organic tofu. I hope this was helpful. Again, you don't have to change everything. And you don't have to make yourself miserable. There's ways where you can find better options to support your body, and pairing in different ratios of foods and proper exercise application, all of those can help you feel better.